DVB Digital Fast.
Hello and welcome to the DVB Newsroom. I'm Nora. Joining me today is Yasmin Ullah, the co-founder of Rohingya Maiyafuinor Collaborative Network. Thank you for being here, Yasmin.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor.
August 25th has been marked as Rohingya Genocide Remembrance Day ever since the brutal military crackdown 8 years ago against the Rohingya civilian. Can you share how you and your family survived and escaped state-sponsored violence in Myanmar?
Well, that's a long story, but I think the only reason why I survived in the 90s, that's when I left from Myanmar, from Arakan to Thailand, to the northern part of Thailand. That was by the sheer bravery and courage of my mom, who decided that that was not the reality that I should live through, even though she's had to go through it herself as a teenager. It was not just the violence itself that was brutal, but it was the reality and the impacts of the genocidal campaigns that also linger. For example, the silencing of women, the receding participation that women would have in terms of access to the society and being visible in the public, because women's body were seen as a battleground by both the junta and by the men in our community, unfortunately, because sometimes, because of these safety issues, because rape has been used and weaponized as a weapon of violence and genocide, women's body then are kept hidden for the safety of the community. But that is not the way that the solution should be, pushed forward. We know how it ended. Now we barely have any leadership of Rohingya women when we should have more women at the forefront.
How did your family cope emotionally through that time?
I don't think we coped at all. Living in the limbo for about 16 years in Thailand with no protection, with no legal status, was very, very difficult. I remember as a child, I was always so fearful of the police checkpoints. I think that is something that is so common now, especially with a lot of Burmese diaspora existing in Thailand. At that time, it was such a taboo to be called Burmese or Bama, because, as soon as someone say those words in school, I get really spooked because, I'm scared that the immigration will come and pick me up or, deport me, because that means death sentence, literally, because we've escaped from Arakan, and there's no escape from, being constantly sentenced to like 2 years jail or more as a Rohingya, just because of the identity that we carry.
Last year, I interviewed Nur Aziza, the co-founder of Rohingya Maiyafuinor Collaborative Network. How did you two meet and begin working together on Rohingya women and children's issues?
Yeah, it was a very curious story. As I mentioned, there are very, very few women in this space. We met because we were working on something during COVID time. I was so fed up with the leadership in the Rohingya community because I don't see enough diversity. I don't see enough women. I don't see enough. I mean, there are enough women out here, but I don't see enough women being able to say what they want because of this policing and silencing from all sides, not just from within the community. And I was so fed up that I was like, I'm not the only one that the international community can work with. I'd rather have so many women injecting their opinions and experiences into, the international fora in order for them to get the real diverse voices, because we are not monolithic as a people. We're so diverse and vibrant as a people, just like any other group of people. And so we met through me coordinating this Rohingya Women webinar series, and that was the first of its, installment. And since then, we've communicated, and 2 years ago, we decided to form the Rohingya Maiyafuinor Collaborative Network because we saw that, after traveling together to Aceh, seeing the refugee camps and seeing how dire the conditions of people in Indonesia were, our people in Indonesia, we needed to do something together. We could no longer just work in isolation.
Sure.
And there's so much power in coming together as a women.
Sure. So as you have mentioned, your team recently visited Indonesia to work with Rohingya living in the refugee camps. How have you been assisting them?
Well, we have a plethora of programs, especially humanitarian programs. We saw what happened on the ground, and although we formed as an advocacy group, we realized that advocacy alone, without actual support to the ground, is no longer enough. And I think this is a model of work that a lot of Rohingya and, Burmese diaspora have had to do, because what will you do if all of your people are killed, in dire conditions? You have no one you're working with, right? So that's kind of the guiding principle. We have raised about $150,000 to $160,000 US in the past 2 years of our formulation in order to basically go to emergency services. And this, we don't just do it in Indonesia. We've supported people within Burma, in Arakan, because of the current fighting between Arakan Army and the junta, forced conscription, and various other very, very emergency situation. We've also supported a lot of Rohingya who fled from violence in Arakan to Bangladesh since May last year. We've helped over 3,000 families to just get basic survival kit, because as soon as they arrive, there's a gap, there's a time that is a gap when UNHCR and IOM can step in, or any other INGOs. And we were like, well, since we don't have the bureaucracy, we can just jump in and help if we have the money. And we run around the world just trying to raise some funds to ensure that our people survive the genocide that they're living through. On the other hand, when there is no emergency, we try our best to support the work of education and vocational training, especially to support women who are vulnerable, especially in the camps in Bangladesh and in Indonesia, to be able to get some kind of vocational training to become self-sufficient. So there are a few cohorts now of women in our Threats of Resilience program that have opened up shops and now are less reliant on aid, especially during aid cut. Another thing that we do, and I'll end it with this, we do gender-sensitive care. There were many, many, many cases of sexual and gender-based violence when women, arrive en masse through boat journey from Bangladesh, from Burma, Myanmar, to Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia. And what we do is we step in when we can, and we try our very best to actually raise the funds elsewhere where we are currently in the West. And there were 6 women who were survivors of the capsized boat in April last year. And those 6 women were actually also survivors of sexual and gender-based violence on the boat, on board. They arrived in Aceh pregnant. And unfortunately, because of the Sharia law, we could not do anything to support their reproductive health in terms of abortion. But what we were able to do, we pushed for that. We supported them to get safe housing. We supported them to get natal care. They gave birth about 4 months ago. And to this day, we try our very best to support them.
How has your team grown since it was established 2 years ago?
Yeah, these are like my favorite topics to talk about. Our team has grown from 5 women to 12 women so far. All of us are diaspora, and there is a very specific strategy that I go for this, because a lot of the cases, it's not that we discriminate against Rohingya women who are currently in exile. That's important for us too. But the person or the people that are a little bit, frontal, a little bit visible on social media or otherwise are going to be diaspora, because we worry about the safety. And we want to make sure that the visibility does not come with the risk. Of course, we will have to mitigate the risk in one way or another, but we want to make sure that they have passport, that they can travel, that they could be on the ground when the time comes. The team has grown so much, so does the diversity. We come from all walks of life, from various different lived experience. A lot of them speak at least 5, 6 languages. I'm the least accomplished of them all. I only speak 3. I speak like Thai, English, and Rohingya, but a lot of them speak Malay, Hindi, Urdu, Burmese, you name it. They're just so smart and vibrant young women. Majority of our team are also Gen Z. And now we've just recruited one Gen Alpha person who's 18 years old, and she's super bright. So I can only hope that the Rohingya future is bright for the community, and we're looking forward to all of your support.
Yeah. So with members spread across different countries, what's been the biggest challenges or advantages?
Yeah, I think time is definitely one of our challenges. Finding the time to meet. Now that we have members from India, it's been increasingly hard to actually try to find time to actually not only come together once a week, but also coordinating, different tasks that we have to complete. I think those are just the easier kind of challenge. The nice things about us being together and, overcoming some of those challenges that we do go on a mission trip once or twice a year, depending on how much funding we have, which not a lot. But we get to actually spend time together. We get to heal together. We get to love our community back to health. We get to see the children, opening our gifts bags when we visited Aceh just, a few days ago. And, those are such small children that were dragged by boat to another country. They survived somehow in the scorching heat, an arduous journey, and the gift bags were bigger than they are. So they have to swim inside the gift bags just to look at all of these, different things that we bought, the stationery, the toys. And as soon as they see it, their eyes lit up like no other. And I just realized, wow, yeah, this was all worth it. However long I have to travel, 6 hours that we have to drive, we are still so privileged to be, safe now. And these children are still in need of our help. Even if all that we can give right now is some access to livelihood, and not a formal, systematic help that governments and states should give, as per the Genocide Convention, rehabilitation of victims. Well, at least we can give them something while we wait, while we advocate for their rights to be given.
Your team has also worked with Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh and Malaysia. What is it you've learned from their stories?
I think the most important story out of all of this is how courageous our women are, how strong they are and have been. And I think one thing that is not understood about Rohingya women is that we've always been here. Even if, genocide has hidden us away, we've been here working our hardest to actually, not only get our voices heard, but also glue the community back together. The only reason why our children survived through the genocide of 2017 and prior, and to this day, mothers who actually carry their children across the Bay of Bengal, across the Sea of Andaman, to get to safety to Indonesia, to Malaysia, to Thailand. All of this were just by sheer strength of our women. And that resonates with the story that I told you earlier. If it weren't for my mom, I would not have survived. I would not have gotten here. And the women in our community continue to try to persevere every single day. And I think that is the unifying factor between us and other women from Burma. We have not given up, and we will not until, we can go back home, until we can restore our rights, our ethnic nationality, our homeland, and get reparations for what we've lost, and give our children the future that they deserve. Those are the things that keep reminding me that if they haven't given up, I have no right to do so.
So how do you make sure those voices are preserved, like through art, storytelling, or education?
We do all of it. We know that genocide is so holistic in a way that it annihilates people and erases people. So we do advocacy and memorialize people legally, of course. We go after reports. We actually write down things that people tell us exactly how it happened. We also try to curate some of these stories in a way that actually maybe is a little bit more attractive to the general public. So we actually create films, we create art competitions, we try to bring people together and bridge communities together, especially through the rise of hate speech. We try to actually bring arts and culture into the mix and inject those into the mix to ensure that people remember who the Rohingya are beyond victimhood. And those storytelling tools have become really, really integral to our advocacy, because advocacy can only reach so many people who cares, right? But arts, film, cultural nights, food get to more people. And we have to try everything if we want to save a community.
So you've published a children's book called Hafsa and the Magical Ring. Can you share with us what it's about?
Yeah, so Hafsa and the Magical Ring is a journey of a young Rohingya girl who was displaced in 2017 from the genocidal violent campaign by the junta, and she now lives in the refugee camps in Cox's Bazar. And it does allude to a little bit of the loss of family, but in a way that children can actually understand and not traumatize them. But also, it's basically a retelling of what she misses about home, about her homeland. And there's a little bit of a mix of textile culture where we use biodegradable materials like screw pine grass, which is like in the pandan family, where we have abundance of those in Arakan. And people use them to weave mats or, kitchen tools and whatnot. And those weaving culture is often not preserved to just one individual families. When it's prepared, when it's woven, it's actually an engagement of an entire neighborhood. So one family needs a mat, an entire neighborhood come together to weave those for them. And stories are told, food is shared. And that becomes, I think, a way that we weave the community together through textile. And it also touches on a little bit of a folklore that calls, similar to the King Midas touch, but this is a magical ring that exists in a folklore of the Rohingya where it can grant wishes. And I'm not going to spoil it for you. You'll have to go and read it yourself. But it has, it has the happy ending that it could have with the reality that we're given. And so it's aimed to be slightly entertaining, but also educational for young children, because I think that is the gap that we have in terms of educating people. You can talk to a lot of adults, but we need to also, ensure that we educate young people, young children that are not quite ready for us to have a conversation about a genocide. But we can educate them about who Rohingya are.
Sure. So speaking about culture, over the last 2 years, you have hosted the Rohingya Cultural Night in Chiang Mai. Why do you think it's important to highlight Rohingya culture, traditions, and its delicious food?
Absolutely. I love that you said it's delicious food. I think that it is important that Rohingya culture is celebrated as much as we commemorate, the genocidal campaign and the victims that have been lost, the survivors that are still stuck in limbo. I think that there's also a celebration of life that needs to happen. We are not just the people adrift at sea. We're not just the people living in concentration camps. We're not just the people who are at the receiving end of violence. We are also a people with culture, with unique traditions, with food that is so delicious. We want everyone to get to try and share. We are a culture of generosity where we want to feed people. We want to see people do well in life. We want to take care of you. That's why, the weaving culture alone tells you a lot about who we are as a people. And so we want to just invite the public to be able to come and experience a little bit of that, a little bit of love from the Rohingya community. And perhaps that way we would be able to overturn some of these hatred that comes from the genocidal erasure. And by doing so, we're able to memorialize part of the history and part of our culture and unique traditions to remain, rather than continue to be erased by the junta and other bad actors.
So what is your favorite dish?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I love goruguso salon, which is beef curry And usually it's eaten with roti fida, which is like a round roti, but it's white. It's not, it's not those golden brown. It's similar to chapati, but it's not roasted in that same way as chapati. So it has a very like drier texture. I also love rice just with anything. I love morisura, which is like chili paste. And I love bayan batta, which is like basically potatoes with eggplants mixed together, and it's all spicy and very flavorful. Yeah.
Have you shared it at Cultural Night?
Yes, we actually shared it last year. Yeah. Those things have been shared. But roti fida is very complex to make, so we haven't been able to make it. But hopefully next time we come in town, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah. Your team is quite active on social media, highlighting hate speech online and debunking misinformation being spread about the Rohingya. Why focus on this instead of ignoring it?
Well, I think that what the junta wants is for us to ignore it, for us to not unpack some of those things. Because if the misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech keep popping up over and over again in different countries against Rohingya, in the exact same way that the junta has done. For example, justifying our genocide, dehumanizing us as cockroach, saying that we're too black, even though we're all the same shade from Burma. That is prolonging the effects of the genocide. In a lot of these countries that we've visited, especially in Southeast Asia, all of the states are involved in the Rohingya genocide and mass atrocities across Burma, Myanmar. And without people understanding where the root cause of this hate speech come from, we will never get to a point where we can actually hold perpetrators and their enablers accountable. And so without us combating against culture of hate, which leads to the culture of genocide, which justifies the violence against an innocent group of people and more, we would never be able to get to a point where we, have a reconciliation as a community, have a reckoning of what we've lost, and fight against fascism that's rising today. One thing that happens now, and this is one primary example, is Rohingya genocide and hate speech against Rohingya is often used as a way to gain political votes in this region. Indonesia and Indonesian politicians have used Rohingya as a boogeyman and vilify us as the national security threats. And this is true across Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, the frontline countries that receive Rohingya. What happened, what ensues, is that the public is rallied against Rohingya, and some of them were paid by politicians and parties. After that, though, once the hate speech is used for a party to win, and they won, it is only a matter of time that democratic backsliding ensues. And I think we're seeing that right now playing out in Indonesia, where the police and government institutions are cracking down on the freedom of speech. Because hate speech is allowing and ushering in a new wave of fascism and nationalist movement. That has happened in Burma with ethno-nationalistic groups like Mabata and 969. We also saw it in Malaysia, where now more nationalist movement also means that there's also silencing of activists and democratic movements. We are seeing this rising everywhere. And Rohingya are in the middle of it and being used to pit against the freedom and the movements for democracy. And so I think there's a lot to explore. And the reason why we do, we combat against hate speech in ways that is not just always serious too. We sometimes troll the troll. And that is a way to also raise awareness, because those videos do really, really well online. It helps us to poke fun at some of these terrible hate speech, because it shows people that, these things are not natural to human beings. It's not natural to our innate self. And one more thing is that the hate speech itself, I think when it comes to combating it, we must all realize why and who benefits from hate speech. Hate speech only allows for impunity to prosper. And in Burma, the Burmese military has always been targeting Rohingya because of our resources. And so did they, in terms of other ethnic groups, in terms of other ethnic areas. And I think that is a deeper question and deeper exploration that we need to have as a country rather than as, a group of people. And ensure that we know a lot of these hate speech and trolls and bots are being paid and they're, from China. Why China comes into play is because there are a lot of economic interest in Arakan. So as long as Rohingya are kept down, pushed down, and silenced online and deemed as unworthy, the more, the easier it is going to be for them. China has even built a concentration camp in Arakan, ready for Rohingya to come back. And China is acting as a mediator in the MOU between Bangladesh and Burma, Myanmar, and, the SAC terrorist admin. So we need to see who's actually at play and who's benefiting from it. As long as China keeps the focus on the Rohingya, they actually get to, get to walk away from the Uyghur genocide, and no repercussion on that. So I think we need to understand that all struggles are interconnected in some way. Someone is getting paid for killing us, and someone is manufacturing this war for all of us to be kept down.
Since the 2021 military coup in Myanmar, many inside the country have come to understand how genocide has been carried out against the Rohingya people. How do you educate and inform those who believe military propaganda?
I think at first we would need to just have a conversation on a human level. A lot of times we try to bring people to our cultural night and more of a dialogue, informal dialogue, through using film and art because it touches people's heart before it touches their brain. Sometimes we need to reach out to people reach out to people in that way. But when it comes to deep hatred, I don't think that we can overturn that without everyone around us helping us. And sometimes these poking fun at hatred online really helps show people how illogical hate is. And so often, we would troll the troll and other people jumps in and say, that is horrible and disgusting. And sometimes that is all that we need because collectively we need to condemn the kind of violence, hatred that we see. Without that, we will never be able to move on from it. Hate needs to be seen as uncool again. There were a time that, Nazism or, genocide was seen as something that is the worst that that humanity can offer. And I think we need to bring back those shame. And so we use a lot of shame and guilt to ensure that our advocacy message gets across. And it is definitely a collective effort. We cannot do it alone. So we definitely would love for our friends from Burma, Myanmar, and elsewhere to actually help us combat these hate narratives by pointing out how absurd it is.
So as we wrap up, is there any message you would like to share with the people inside of Myanmar?
This is a very, very hard question because I am speaking from a privileged position and having enjoyed safety for the past 14 years. I don't think I have the right to tell them anything apart from I'm here with you. I know that I'm far, far away, but I hope that you hold on to this hope that we can actually have our country back. We can rebuild it together. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with DVB, Yasmin.
Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here.